Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my December wrap-up. So in December I read 13 books and the first two were actually part of the same series, and that was The Assassin's Blade and Heir of Fire, which are the prequel and book 3 of the Throne of Glass series, which is a fantasy series. And some people read the prequel first, some people read it third like I did, some people read it fourth. And I just decided to read third because it was like in the order that it was published. And in that one, like I said, it was a prequel, so we were obviously learning about the main character's past. And in the first two books, I didn't really love the main character, and I didn't really connect to her. And in the prequel, I definitely started liking her a lot more and started seeing her actually be like the cool assassin that she was claimed to be in the first two books. And we also got to explore more of the world, and we also got the answers from Selena's past, things we were wondering about in the first two books. Or if you read the prequel first, you obviously won't wonder about them, but I was. And so I finally got the answers to those questions, and I really enjoyed it. I was really invested from start to finish. The only complaint I have, I guess, is that it wasn't really fantasy that much. Obviously it was set in a fantasy world, we know it is a fantasy world, but we didn't really see the fantasy as much as we see in the other books. And so in the third book, Heir of Fire, we are continuing with the main plot line. And the main plot line is that Selena, like I said, used to be an assassin. And in the first book, she is taken to compete to be the king's champion. And we discover some magic. And at the end of book 2, there was a reveal. And I love the end of book 2. I thought it was insane in the best way possible. And so in this third book, we were exploring a different part of the world because Selena was in a new setting. We still have characters back in the same place where they were in the first two books, but Selena herself was in a different place, so we were exploring more of the world, which I did really enjoy. And we also met two new characters, and one of them, he was okay, he's fine. Didn't love him, I didn't dislike him either, he's fine. And the other character I am absolutely obsessed with. She is an icon, and once again I liked Selena more in this book than in the first two, and she was more badass, and also I connected to her more in general, and I was really invested in this book, in the plot the whole time. And the end was not as insane as the end of the second book, in my opinion, but it was still a pretty good ending, and I'm excited to continue with the series. And so I gave both of these books 4 stars. Then I read The Midnight Kingdom, which is the second book in the Dark Gods trilogy. At least I think it's a trilogy, and that is fantasy. And in this series, there are 4 gods, and those 4 gods have 4 different powers. And then there are 4 families that have the powers of those gods, and the powers are of life, death, light, and darkness. And all of the realms and the powers converge on a city, which is the City of Dusk, which is where those families live. And those families they all have an heir. And there is also a king that does not have any of the powers, and at the same time he also doesn't have any heirs himself, so he will choose one of the heirs of those 4 families to be his own heir. And so we are following the 4 heirs of the families, and so they are working against each other because they, especially their families want them to be the heir and the new king or queen, and so they are kind of working against each other, but at the same time they are working together to save their city because the gods have closed themselves off from the city and it is kind of dying. And at the end of book 1, there was a fight and it was absolutely insane. And so in this book we were seeing the characters obviously dealing with all of that, and in this one they were all in different places and doing different things, unlike book 1 where they were all in the city trying to work on kind of the same things. In this one they were scattered, and I was really invested in 3 of the 4 POVs. Like, I was absolutely obsessed with everything that was happening. But the 4th, honestly, I could not have cared less. And I mean, it is like the character I like the least, and at the same time, they were doing the least interesting thing to me. So I really did not care about that one POV until like the very end of the book, where like everything got crazy and explosive again. And at the end, I did care about all of the POVs, but like throughout all of the book, pretty much, I did not care about one of the characters. I think luckily, like, they had the shortest chapters, but still it was, you know, a lot of the book that I didn't really care about. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed it. I was really invested, and I'm very excited for the next book, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Secret Santa, which was a horror Christmas book, and we were following Lucy, and she was looking for a new job, and she does get a new job at a publisher in an unconventional way. And when she does get that job, it's around Christmas time, and so everyone like at the publisher has, like, they're doing a Secret Santa, but like the names were picked before she started working there, so no one was expecting her to have a Secret Santa, including herself. But she does receive a gift, which is a doll that, from the description, sounds very creepy. And like, on the one hand, she kind of likes the doll because someone in her family had one like it. But on the other hand, she really doesn't like it because it is connected also to something or someone else that makes it like really creepy, like even creepier. And after she gets that doll, weird things start happening, and she really doesn't feel welcome at her job. And she also feels like some of her coworkers are attacking her. And like, it was okay. I was never really that invested, and I was definitely not scared. I didn't think it was really scary. Like, the descriptions of the doll were creepy, but other than that, I didn't really think it was that creepy or that scary, and I didn't really care. And I mean, when you got the reveal of like why the weird things were happening, it was, again, okay. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was like a fun time, but nothing that I will be thinking about like ever again in my life. Then I read Midnight is the Darkest Hour, which is a mystery thriller. And in this one, we were following Ruth and Everett, even though it was always from Ruth's POV, like Everett was there most of the time. And basically there had been a dead body found in the town where they lived. And they start panicking because they think that they know like what is happening, like who the person is and like how they died, and they think they might be connected to it. So they start panicking. But then like more bodies start appearing, so they're confused. And I was confused. And there is also like a creature, or the myth, the legend of a creature called the Lowman that, you know, kills people. And so they were trying to also figure out like who the Lowman was. And also there were like so many Twilight references in this book because the main character was like obsessed with Twilight, and so everything was a Twilight reference for her. And I mean, it was funny in the beginning, but it was like literally every few pages it was a Twilight reference. So I got tired of it pretty fast. And I mean, I was like interested enough in the mystery, but I wasn't like, you know, obsessed with it. It was just being like an okay book. And so I was thinking of giving it like 3 stars, but then the main character actually like voiced her theory about everything that was happening, and it was like so ridiculous. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever read in anything that is like set in the real world. And so that's lowered my rating. And then the ending I really didn't like, so it lowered my enjoyment and my rating even more. And so sadly, this one did not work for me, and I gave it 2 stars. The next book was Hark, the Herald Angels Scream, and this was another horror Christmas book. This one was short stories with stories from various different authors, and some of them I was really excited to read because they were from authors that I have read before and that I had like enjoyed stuff from before. So I was really excited for this one, and I was especially excited because like I read the first short story and I really enjoyed it. Like I thought it was really creepy the whole way through, but then the ending was like insanely creepy. So I was really excited, and like I read that one and then like I went to sleep, and so I was reading the rest of the book on the next day. And you know, I love the first one. I had high expectations, and then I didn't love any other short story. Like most of them I gave 3 stars, some of them I gave 2 stars, and honestly it was disappointing because I was fully expecting to love it, but sadly like it was okay. I think like if I did the average rating of all like the short stories, it gave me less than 3 stars, but I still gave it 3 stars. Next, I read Dark Celebrations, which was another short story collection, like horror short story collection. And this one had short stories just from one author. And it was like, it had 12 short stories because it had one for a holiday or like a special date in each month. And I read this one because it obviously had one for Christmas, and that was for a video that I was doing. And like I read all of them, and this one I enjoyed like much more. It was like much more my kind of horror, and so like I had some 5 stars, some 4.5s, and the lowest rated ones were 3.5. So I really enjoyed all of them. This one was a really good time. It was creepy, and I gave it 4 stars. Next book was The Christmas Bell, which was another horror Christmas book. And in this one, we were following Candace, and she was going home for the holidays to spend time with her mom and her grandma. And when she gets home, they still have not like put up their decorations. So she is looking for the decorations and finds like a box of ornaments. And one of the ornaments is kind of like a bell. And after she touches that one, she like has a weird, creepy vision. And also they start being haunted. And then we learn that the haunting is caused by something or someone that is connected to their family's past. And there is like 2 timelines. We are learning about the past and also seeing the haunting happening in the present. And this one was like pretty creepy. It was like really short, but really creepy. And personally, I love the way that it ended. But I saw some people saying that they really did not like the way that it ended at all. And I get it. Because if you want like a really, you know, like closed ending, that's not it. It's kind of open-ended. But in horror books, there's like a specific type of open end that I love. And this was exactly that. So I really, really enjoyed it. And I also gave this one 4 stars. Next, I read Where the Dead Go to Die, which was yet another horror Christmas book, or at least it was supposed to be. It wasn't really like Christmas, because the only thing that happens, like where Christmas was mentioned, was like the main characters having dinner at someone's house, like on Christmas, but they could have had that dinner any other day. So the fact that it was Christmas was completely irrelevant. But anyway, this was set in a sort of dystopian world because people in that world, like they got infected and turned into sort of zombies. And the like transformation into zombies was very slow, like it took months. And so some people spent those last months of their lives in hospices. And we were following Emily, who was a nurse at one of those hospices, and she was also trying to deal with something very traumatic that happened in their past, and at the same time she was trying to protect her daughter from like the infections and everything and the zombies. And we see like some of the patients of the hospice, and pretty much at the beginning of the book there is a young boy that is left there because he was like infected and he was gonna turn, and he was just like left there. And so we see basically the progression of his infection, his transformation. And this book was really sad. Like it was more sad than scary. The like scary part was, you know, seeing someone that you love like getting sick and dying and like grief. That was the horror. That was the scary part. And like towards the end there was a more like thrillery horror part, but overall, it was just more of a sad vibe, but I really, really enjoyed it. Like, it was not what I was expecting, but I still really, really loved it. And I also gave this one 4 stars. Next, I read An Imperial Retinue, and this was a short story collection that was set in the world of the Books of Babel series, which was a fantasy series that I read like 1.5 years ago, around that. And I really enjoyed that series. And so in this one, we had, like I said, some short stories. Some of them were actually, like, from what I've seen, I think they were like chapters that didn't end up making it to the final novels, and some of them were just short stories. And so we got to see more of the Tower of Babel and more from the characters that we already knew, and also got to meet some new characters, and I really loved it. I loved getting to know more about some characters that I really loved from the series. And I mean, like, we knew kind of their backstory, but like we got to see it happen. And yeah, I really loved it, but I really loved it because I really liked the series. I don't think I would really recommend it, like, if you had not read the series, because you would not have like the attachments to the characters and to the world that I have. And I'm not sure like you would enjoy just the stories, you know, by themselves. But I personally really enjoyed it, and we have yet another 4 stars. Next book was Bonesmith, and this was the first book in the House of the Dead duology, I'm pretty sure, and it is fantasy, and we are following Ren, who is a bonesmith, which means that she can basically separate like the ghosts from the bodies, like dead bodies, and kind of control like the bodies themselves, like bones. And there are some bonesmiths that are Valkyrs, who are basically warriors that fight the ghosts. And Ren wants to be a Valkyr. And so she, in the beginning of the book, is like competing, going through some trials to become a Valkyr. But she is betrayed, and so she does not manage to become a Valkyr. And she is sent to the wall that separates like those lands from the breach that are like full of undead. And while she's there, the prince also like goes there, and then he gets kidnapped. And so Ren wants to prove herself and get the prince back. And in order to do that, she has to work with an ironsmith. And ironsmiths and bonesmiths are kind of enemies, but they have to work together to get the prince. And also, while she is like over the wall, she finds some people that she thought would not be there, like were not supposed to be there. And at the same time, she learns about some magic that she also didn't think was possible. And I really love this book. Like, I love the characters, I love the world, I love every scene that we had with the dead. I love the plot, like I was invested the whole time. And I actually liked the romance. And like the reveal that we had at the end was exactly what I was wanting. So I loved everything about this book, and I am so excited for the next one. And I gave it 5 stars. Next book I read was Rock, Paper, Scissors, which was a mystery thriller. And in that one, we were following a couple who was spending some days away from home because they were having some problems in their marriage, and they were, you know, trying to fix it. And as soon as they get to the place where they're supposed to be spending those days, they feel that something is wrong. Like, there is something weird going on. They feel like there is someone else there, like someone watching them, and even like breaking into the house that they're in. And this has like a dual timeline because we have them like in the present, and then we have like a past timeline that is like letters that the wife has written but never actually sent to her husband. And so we are just like reading the letters and like learning about the relationship in that way. And it was fun, it was entertaining, but I wasn't like really that invested. I wasn't really like obsessed with it. But the plot twist, the reveal, was definitely insane. But after like it was revealed, I could definitely see like the clues, like it kind of made sense. So I definitely enjoyed that. And yeah, like it was okay, I really enjoyed it, but it's not like something that I was obsessed with, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And the final book I read in December, and therefore the final book I read in 2023, was City of Last Chances, which was book 1 in the Tyrant Philosophers, I think also a duology, and that is fantasy. And the book is set in Ilmar, which is a city that is under Palestine occupation, and we are following a bunch of different characters. We have a lot of different POVs in this book, and we are seeing how they are like connected to a revolution, how they are trying to start a revolution in various different ways. And honestly, like, this book was really overwhelming to get into because from the beginning there are so many characters and there's like so much politic and so many like different groups of people that have like very different relationships with each other, and I was definitely very overwhelmed. And I'm not gonna like say that I understood everything there was to understand about like the politics of that world, because I definitely did not. Like, I understood enough to, you know, enjoy the book, to understand the book, but definitely not like 100% of it. But it was still like a really good time. I didn't like love any of the characters because none of them were like fully likable, which is not a problem. Like, they felt very much like real people, which I appreciated, and I was invested in all of their POVs, and so I had a really good time. And the ending definitely was surprising. It was not exactly like what I was expecting from it, but I'm interested in seeing where book 2 is going. And yeah, I had a really good time with it, and I gave it 4 stars. And yeah, those were the 13 books I read in December. I mostly enjoyed them. There was only one that didn't work for me, which was Midnight is the Darkest Hour. Then all the other ones I had a good time with, some more than others, obviously. But I would say it was still a really good reading month. And yeah, that is everything for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time. Bye!